It's really interesting to see how Dying Light, the Beast, ended up where it is today. If you followed the development, you probably know it was originally planned as a DLC expansion for Dying Light 2. But as the years went by, the project just kept growing and growing in scope until Techland realized it had become its own standalone thing. It's one of those rare cases where a developer realizes they have too much good stuff for just a simple add-on, so they give it the space to breathe as a separate title. Because of those roots, a lot of people are naturally wondering, is this actually a full game, or is it just a glorified expansion? The truth is somewhere in the middle, but leaning heavily towards a full experience. There's definitely plenty of meat on the bone here, even if it feels a bit more focused and compact than the massive, sprawling map of Dying Light 2. For players who felt the previous game was maybe a little too big or filled with filler, the Beast offers a tighter, more compact world, which feels similar to the first game. In terms of how much time you'll actually spend in this version of the apocalypse, it's a pretty solid chunk of gaming. The side content plus the main story takes somewhere between 30 and 35 hours. That's a really sweet spot for a standalone title. Long enough to feel like you've been on a real journey with Kyle Crane again, but not so long that it overstays its welcome. If you're diving into Dying Light and feel like your weapons are basically made of a water gun, you need to make a move for the Needle. In a game where your gear is constantly snapping in half at the worst possible moment, having a high-tier legendary SMG in your backpack is a total game-changer moment for any player. Most people make the mistake of following the main quest line straight into the heart of the city, or heading north towards Old Town. But if you want the real power early on, you actually need to head the opposite way. The gun is tucked away in the National Park Zone, which is down in the southeast corner of the map. It's a bit of a trek, and the area feels relatively empty compared to the chaos of the city. But that's exactly why the loot is so good, because rare items don't present themselves. You're looking for a specific little valley that honestly looks like a postcard. It's got a big house, a lookout tower, and a ranger station. That ranger station is exactly where the prize is hidden, though you can't just walk up through the front door and grab it. Once you arrive, you'll find the garage doors are locked tight because there's no power. You'll have to sneak around and solve a quick, simple electric puzzle to get the machinery running and the doors moving. Just a heads up, the noise usually attracts some unwanted company. There's a few zombies hanging out inside the station that aren't going to be happy you've interrupted their nap, so be ready to smash some skulls as soon as those doors slide up. After you've cleared the floor and scavenged all the loose resources, which you should definitely grab because you can never have enough loot, head to the locked room in the back. That's where you'll find the Needle. It's got a really slick, unique design and a 40-round magazine. What's even better is that the game actually gives you a fighting chance to use it. There are 2 boxes of SMG ammo sitting right there. In a game that rarely gives you enough ammo, finding 40 rounds in one spot feels like winning the lottery. The reason this gun is such a big deal is that, unlike your machetes or pipes, guns in this game don't break. You don't have to worry about durability or repairs. As long as you have a bullet in the magazine, it's going to fire. It's the ultimate last option weapon. When you're cornered by a mob or a volatile, and your melee weapon shatters, pulling this out can literally save your life. It's easily one of the most reliable tools you'll find in the early game, and it will stay useful long after your other starting gear has been tossed in the trash. If you're spending a lot of time in Old Town, or any of the more high spots in Dying Light, the Beast, you already know that the game practically begs you to jump off high buildings to save time and have fun. Getting around quickly is half the fun, but the drop is usually enough to turn your legs into wobbly jelly if you aren't careful. Most of the time, the game throws the same stuff at you. You'll see a giant pile of trash, a dumpster, or a heap of leaves, and know instinctively that you're safe to drop for it. But honestly, those aren't the only ways to survive a massive drop, and knowing the hidden landing pads makes parkour feel way less restrictive. One of the best lifesavers that people often overlook is anything made of canvas or thick cloth. For example, there's a massive drop right outside the library tower that looks like certain death. However, if you aim for the tent canopy below, you'll bounce right off it and take 0 damage. It doesn't look like it should support a full-grown man falling from the sky, but the game's logic treats those cloth rooftops like professional stunt mats. Whether it's an awning over a shop or a large military-style tent, if it's fabric, it's a safe zone. Then there's the one that feels a bit more strange, but is a total lifesaver once you remember how it works. car roofs. This was a classic trick in the older games, and the developers kept it alive for the Beast. It doesn't matter if it's a tiny hatchback, a delivery truck, or even a trailer. As long as you land on the roof, the impact is cushioned and absorbed. You'll hear the metal crunch and the glass shatter, which sounds painful, but your health bar won't even be affected. It's a bit weird that a metal car roof is softer than the pavement, but it definitely makes getting down from a rooftop 10 times faster than looking for a yellow pipe to slide down. Knowing these little tricks really changes how you look at the map. Instead of constantly scanning for the designated landing zones that the game wants you to use, you start seeing the whole world as a playground. You can basically leap off almost any edge with confidence, as long as there's a parked car or a shop shade nearby. It makes the parkour feel way less tedious, because you aren't constantly backtracking to find a safe way down. You just pick a target, leap, and keep running. After finishing that marathon mission to get the power plant back online, you're probably going to be tempted to run straight back to Town Hall to turn it in. But on your way back, you're going to get interrupted by a little side quest to activate a nearby substation. My advice, don't ignore that notification. It's easy to count this as just another go here, flip a switch job, but ignoring it is a huge mistake if you actually want to survive the streets of Old Town. The quest is called The Cable Guy, and while the name sounds pretty boring, the rewards are anything but. First off, if you're a gearhead, there's a seriously powerful, unique weapon hide inside the station that makes the detour worth it on its own. But the real must-have reason to finish this isn't the loot, it's the utility. Completing this specific side mission is what actually unlocks the remote traps scattered all over Old Town. If you played the original Dying Light, you probably remember those traps being available everywhere right from the start. In the Beast, however, they've locked that functionality behind this one random side quest. Once you get the power humming in that substation, those traps finally become active. From that point on, whenever you're parkouring through the city and get near a trap, a little icon pops up on your screen. One button press triggers the traps and damages all zombies passing nearby. It's a lifesaver for sure. They'll start beeping or flashing to pull every zombie in the area towards them, and then they go off with a massive bang, clearing the area in seconds. It makes moving through the most crowded parts of Old Town 100 times safer because you're using the city itself as a weapon. Seriously, don't pass this one up. You can use it in so many different ways, tactically and for fun as well. It's one of those things that makes Dying Light an exciting experience for the player, as they'll be using the city environment to their advantage for fighting off the zombies on the street. Most of us grew up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoons, and those characters, the four brothers and their mentor, Master Splinter, hold a really special place in our hearts. There's just something nostalgic about that bond, which is why it's so cool to see Dying Light pay tribute to them in such a gritty setting. Finding a reference to the team, along with Master Splinter and Leonardo's iconic katana, feels like a sign to our childhoods. It's an awesome find, especially because those specific details makes exploring the creepiest parts of the map actually worth the stress. The developers have always been great at including 80s and 90s pop culture into these underground spots, and they really nailed the staging there. While most players are panicking and sprinting away from that lone Volatile, since those things are absolute nightmare fuel in tight tunnels, you actually found the reward for the brave by heading into the dead end. Seeing the 4 pizza boxes laid out for the brothers, and the dead rat representing Master Splinter is a great touch, but stumbling onto Leo's sword stuck in the ground is the definitive moment. It's a perfect giveaway to the leader of the group, and you get to keep a cool sword, so that's a plus. It's easily one of the best Easter eggs in the game. If you're looking for a weapon that can basically one-shot elite enemies, you need to track down the Strauss Broda. This is a unique legendary machete, hidden in a spot so secret you'd probably never find it unless someone told you exactly where to look. It's a total hack that you can grab super early in the game, though the method for actually getting your hands on it is, frankly, a bit ridiculous. To find it, you'll want to head to the building southeast of the Cement Gardens, right on the edge of Golden Pine Park, just northwest of Memorial Hill of Heroes Monument. You're looking for a specific rooftop with a utility room and a large shade. There's a little campfire set up there, making it look like someone's been camping on the roof. The catch? The door has a hard lockpick challenge, so make sure you've got some picks on you and a bit of patience. Once you're inside the dark utility room, you'll hear some creepy, strange sounds. Just ignore those and focus on the grey wall-mounted locker right next to the door. This is where things get weird. When you interact with it, you'll get a knock command. You'll bang your arm against it, and nothing happens. The trick is that you have to keep knocking. And I mean really, really keep on knocking. You'll need to spam that command for 3 to 4 minutes straight. It feels like the game is broken or trolling you, but eventually the locker will finally pop open. The real standout here is that plus 500% damage during parkour attacks. If you're jumping off a wall or dropping onto a zombie, this thing hits like a bullet train that doesn't spare anything. Just keep in mind that it's irreparable. You can't fix it once the durability hits 0. It's the ultimate boss killer. So maybe save it for the heavy hitters, or those moments when you're backed into a corner and need to clear a path fast. If you're a fan of gaming history, you're going to love how many signs to other legendary franchises are included in Dying Light, the Beast. One of the coolest finds is a literal returning axe that you can find hanging right on a wall at a specific spot on the map. It's sitting there in plain sight, and if you check the description, it says, "In case of throwing, return to sender." It sounds like a joke or just some nonsense text, but the game is actually being 100% literal. If you chuck this thing on a zombie's head, it doesn't just sit there on the zombie, it flies straight back into your hand like a boomerang. It's impossible to use this thing without feeling like Kratos from the recent God of War games. Watching that blade spin through the air and snap back into your grip is incredibly satisfying. Also, if you're like me and didn't even realize you could throw weapons in the Beast yet, it's actually pretty simple once you know the input. You just have to charge up a power attack and then click in the right analog stick. It adds a whole new level to combat, especially when you have a weapon that refuses to stay lost. If you head over to the silos on the map, you can find a blueprint for something called the tempered crowbar sitting right on top of one. The description for this one is a total giveaway for Valve fans. A free man is bound to master this weapon in half his life. It's a clever play on words referencing Gordon Freeman, the legendary, crowbar-swinging protagonist of the Half-Life series. Gordon has popped up as an Easter egg in everything from Stalker to Splinter Cell, so it's awesome to see him get a shout out here too. If you're still skeptical about whether it's a Half-Life reference, the developers left some extra clues that are actually pretty easy to miss if you aren't looking closely. Right next to where you pick up the blueprint, there's an actual physical valve assigned to the studio. That symbol is the iconic logo for the Half-Life games, and seeing it hidden there really seals the deal. It's a great little scavenger hunt for anyone who appreciates the classics while they're out there smashing zombies. When you think about secrets in Dying Light to the Beast, you would think most of them are buried behind puzzles, but this one is quite the opposite. If you head to this specific spot on the map, you'll find a bus with a skeleton just chilling in one of the seats. It looks like he was traveling around when the world ended and apparently found his seat so comfortable that he just decided to accept his fate right then and there. It's a grim scene, but when you look closer at what the guy was doing in his final moments, the tone shifts from dark to hilarious. The skeleton is actually holding a piece of paper, which at first seemed like an ordinary diary page, but if you take a second to read it, you'll see he was in the middle of writing a song titled Choose Yourself. The lyrics are a total giveaway. His toes are sweaty, lips weak, balls are heavy, there's vomit on his hoodie already, dad's spaghetti. It's a ridiculous zombie apocalypse parody of Eminem's Lose Yourself. This wannabe rap god is definitely looking a little extra slim these days, and the whole setup is a classic mention to Marshall Mathers, aka the rap god. The reference goes even deeper than just the goofy lyrics though. If you look at the way the skeleton is positioned, hunched over with his head down, grabbing the notepad, it's a direct recreation of the iconic scene from Eminem's movie, 8 Mile. It's that exact moment where B-Rabbit is sitting on the bus, getting his head in the zone before a rap battle. Even in the middle of a literal nightmare full of flesh-eating monsters, the devs still found a way to include a tribute to Slim Shady. It's definitely worth a visit just to see the Dad Spaghetti line in person, and appreciate the level of detail they put into these pop culture jokes. If you're a veteran of the original Dying Light, you probably remember the legendary sword stuck in a rock out in the middle of the bay. Well, the developers brought that legend back in a big way with the EXP Caliber 2 in Dying Light the Beast. This isn't just a simple scavenger hunt, it's a full-on quest that requires you to prove your worth by tracking down 8 different stone sigils scattered across the map. It's a bit of a trek, but for a sword that gives you a massive plus 500% damage boost on parkour attacks and a 10% XP buff, It's arguably the best longsword you can get your hands on. To even get started, you'll need to hunt down those 8 sigils, which are hidden in some pretty specific spots. You'll find the stone sigil, Death, in the crypt basement of the church north of Old Town, and the stone sigil, the Void, hidden behind a waterfall in the national park. Others are more hidden, like the stone sigil, Curse, which is actually stuck in the mouth of a skeleton on the Tree of Madness near Memorial Hill. A quick heads up, you can't finish the set until you've cleared the Some Like It Dark main mission, as the final stone sigil, Shadow, is locked inside the Exile's Cave safe zone. Once you've finally collected all 8 pieces, head to the massive rock formation northeast of the monastery in the national park. You'll have to do a bit of climbing to reach the very top, where you'll find a stone symbol on the ground. After you place all the sigils into the slots, don't expect to just walk away with the prize. A massive demolisher is going to spawn right there to challenge you. You've got to take him down before you can even touch the sword. After the fight's over, walk up to the blade and get ready for a workout. Just like the first game, you have to hold down the button for a good while as your character slowly pulls it out of the stone. Once it finally pops free, you have the legendary sword in your inventory along with its blueprint. It's got 160 durability, which is solid, but the real power comes from using it at night or while you're jumping off walls. It turns you into a total Knight of the Apocalypse, making those tough boss fights feel like a walk in the park. If you thought the sewer turtles or the returning axe were weird, wait until you hear about the quest for the Beaver's stick. It starts off sounding like a total joke. You're basically acting as a construction assistant for a local rodent, but it ends up being one of the most bizarre and rewarding encounters in Dying Light to the Beast. To get started, you have to scour the town to find 6 specific branches around the map. They look like ordinary sticks, but they're essential items for what comes next. Once you've gathered all 6, you need to head to a specific spot in the national park, where a beaver is trying to build a dam. You'll get a prompt to help him out, and you'll place your branches to help finish the structure. At first, the dam looks like a mess, and honestly, it doesn't look like it could hold back a puddle, let alone a river. But the trick here is to leave the area and take a nap. When you come back, the beaver has clearly been putting in overtime because the dam will be fully reinforced and look much more structurally sound. However, the real secret is actually hiding beneath the surface. If you dive into the water by the dam, you'll discover a hidden underwater entrance leading into a secret room. It's a surreal little hideout filled with family photos. It's hard to tell if a very beaver family lived there, or if some survivor just had a really intense obsession with beavers. But either way, it's a cozy, strange little bunker. There isn't much to do at first, so you'll need to interact with the bed and take another nap right there on the hideout, like it's your own place and you're hanging there after a long day of heavy zombie killing. When you wake up, things take a turn for the terrifying, because you'll surely not be alone this time. You'll find yourself face to face with a giant beaver zombie. Now, realistically, it's probably just a guy who was wearing the national park's beaver mascot costume when their world ended, but in the dark, cramped space of that hideout, it's a total jump scare. The beaver man is surprisingly tanky and can soak up a lot of damage, so don't underestimate him. Once you finally take him down, you can claim the beaver's stick for yourself. It's a unique, powerful weapon that proves that in the right hands, even a humble branch can be a legendary tool for zombie smashing. It really wouldn't be a proper zombie game without a mention to The Walking Dead, would it? Dying Light the Beast keeps that tradition alive, though the developers went with a classic rather than something new. At a few different spots across the map, you'll run into those iconic "Don't Open, Dead Inside" messages spray painted onto locked doors. It's a bit of a staple in the genre at this point. We saw something similar in Dying Light 2, and while it's always a fun find, part of me wishes they'd dig a little deeper into the show's lore for something fresh. Still, it's a nice tribute to the series that made zombies famous again. If you're looking for a reference that's a bit more out there and way more niche, there's an amazing X-Files Easter egg hidden at the top of a massive chimney. You'll find it at a specific location on the map, and I'm not joking when I say it's a long, exhausting climb. As you're climbing the height, you'll probably be setting yourself up for a legendary sword or a high-tier gun, but what you actually find is a bag of sunflower seeds. Specifically, Mulder's sunflower seeds, produced by Fox Farms. At first, it feels like a total troll, like climbing all that way just for a snack that usually gets stuck in your teeth is definitely a letdown. But for fans of the show, it's a perfect reference to Agent Fox Mulder, who was famous for snacking on seeds while investigating paranormal mysteries. It's a clever bit of world building, But the developers took the joke just one step further than just a simple inventory item. The real magic happens after you pick up the seeds. If you quit the main menu, you'll notice a subtle change. Instead of the usual idle animation, you'll see Crane actually sitting there, casually cracking open and eating the sunflower seeds while you're waiting to start the game. It's such a small, clever detail that turns a seemingly useless item into one of the most unique Easter eggs in the game. I'm not sure exactly how many servings he has before he stops, but it's a brilliant way to make the game feel a bit more alive, even if you did have to climb a giant chimney to get them. One of the more unsettling sights you'll come across is located right here on the map, and it's definitely the kind of thing that makes you do a double take. You'll find a truck that had a pretty gruesome run-in with a massive log, which is smashed right through the front. It's a total wreck, and immediately, your brain probably goes to that classic moment from Final Destination 2. You know the one. The infamous highway pileup where the logging truck loses its load and causes absolute carnage. A lot of people in the community are convinced this is a direct sign to that movie, especially since that scene is basically the reason an entire generation refuses to drive behind logging trucks on the freeway. However, there's a bit of a catch that makes some players, including me, a little skeptical. If you remember the movie, it was actually a cop car that got impaled by the log in that specific, heart-stopping moment. Since Dying Light the Beast has plenty of police cruisers scattered around the world, it feels like a missed opportunity. If they really wanted to seal the deal on a reference, why not use a patrol car instead of a random truck? Maybe I'm being a bit too picky or overanalyzing the logic of a horror movie tribute, but it's an interesting detail to chew on. On one hand, the logic of a log for a windshield is so tied to Final Destination that it's hard to think of anything else. On the other hand, the dev team is usually so precise with their Easter eggs, like the X-Files seeds or the TMNT sewer, that the switch to a truck feels a bit deliberate. Whether it's a slightly off movie reference, or just a piece of Techland storytelling showing how chaotic the initial outbreak was, it's still a cool, creepy landmark to find. It definitely adds to that feeling that the world didn't just end because of zombies, but because everything, including the roads, just demolished into total, unmanaged Final Destination style madness. If you're a fan of the Harry Potter series, you've probably spent at least a little bit of time wondering what it would actually feel like to sprint full speed at a solid brick wall. Well, in Dying Light the Beast, the developers gave you the chance to find out. If you head over to this specific location on the map, you'll find a spot that's a dead ringer for platform 9 3/4. In the movies, that's the magical gateway at King's Cross Station that leads to the Hogwarts Express, and the game stays surprisingly faithful to the movie itself. If you line yourself up and ready for the run, you won't just get a face full of brick, you'll actually phase right through the solid wall and enter a hidden area. However, once you pass through the magical barrier, the reference takes a sharp turn into a completely different corner of gaming history. Instead of finding a steam engine or a bunch of kids in robes, you'll find yourself standing inside a tunnel made entirely of Minecraft blocks. It's one of the most awesome moments in the game, because the art style shifts so uniquely. You go from a realistic, gritty world of a zombie apocalypse straight into a pixelated, blocky landscape that looks like it was ripped directly out of a Mojang server. The devs didn't just stop at the visuals either. They actually brought over some of the core mechanics. Just like in Minecraft, these blocks aren't just for show. You can actually attack them to break them down, mining your way further into the hidden room. It's a really clever way to reward players for experimenting with the environment, and it feels like a total playground compared to the stress of the streets outside. But don't let the cute, pixelated graphics lower your guard too much. The game adds one final layer to the joke by keeping the survival aspect of both games alive. Just like when you're exploring a deep, unlit cave in Minecraft and suddenly hear the hiss of a creeper or the groan of a mob, this secret tunnel is home to some very real zombies. They're lurking in the shadows of the blocky corridors, waiting for you to get distracted by the novelty of the Easter egg. It's a hilarious and slightly nerve-wracking mashup that proves the devs have a great sense of humor when it comes to blending different gaming worlds together. While the Harry Potter and Minecraft parts of this secret area are a blast, the final discovery hidden in that tunnel is probably the best of the bunch. At first glance, you might just see an old train sitting in the dark and think it's nothing special, but you'd be wrong. This train is actually a massive nod to a real-world urban legend about a Nazi gold train. that was supposedly hidden in a secret tunnel system in Poland during the final days of World War II. The story goes that as the war was ending, a train loaded with gold, gems, and stolen treasure was driven into a mountain to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. It's a legendary mystery that people have spent decades trying to solve with radar and shovels, but no one has ever found a single track or coin from it in real life. Techland decided to give that legend a home here, and they didn't skimp on the details. You can actually find physical gold bars sitting right next to the train and game. But the real holy grail of the room isn't the gold. It's a blueprint for a weapon called the Last Hand of Glover. If you've played Dead Island or the first Dying Light, you definitely know about the Glover weapons. They're classic developer Easter eggs that give you almost godlike powers. When you craft and use this hand, you can basically blast zombies with bolts of energy that send them flying. It's a huge fan favorite tradition, but the name of this one is a bit bittersweet. Since it's specifically called the Last Hand of Glover, it feels like a little hint from the developers that this might be the final time we see this legendary weapon in a Techland game. It's the perfect way to wrap up a secret area that connects movie magic, gaming history, and one of the world's most famous unsolved mysteries. If you take a break from the zombie-filled streets and head out to the more isolated areas of the map in Dying Light the Beast, you might stumble across a really lonely-looking scene that's a direct nod to the movie Castaway. At a specific spot along the shoreline, or tucked away on a small, secluded patch of land, you can find a makeshift campsite that looks exactly like where Tom Hanks's character, Chuck Noland, spent years trying to survive. The dead giveaway for this reference is, of course, a volleyball that's been modified to look just like Wilson. It's got the iconic bloody handprint face painted on it, and it's usually sitting on a rock or a crate as if it's keeping watch over the area. It's one of those smaller, quieter Easter eggs that doesn't grant you a legendary weapon or a massive explosion, but it's a perfect fit for a game that's all about survival and the toll that isolation takes on a person. Seeing Wilson just sitting there in the middle of a zombie apocalypse adds a weirdly sad layer to the world. It makes you wonder if some poor survivor found themselves trapped on that spot and started talking to a ball just to keep themselves from going completely insane, much like Chuck did in the movie. It's a great example of how the developers love to use outside-of-game storytelling to pay tribute to famous survival stories, proving that even in a world full of monsters, the struggle to stay human is still the biggest challenge of all. If you're out exploring the far right side of the map, keep an eye out for a lonely-looking secret shed. It's locked up tight at first, so you'll need to figure out how to get the power back on to open the door, but the effort is more than worth it. Inside, you'll find a cool-looking motorcycle parked in the middle of the room, but the real prize is sitting right there, a legendary shotgun called the Statement. The shotgun itself is a total powerhouse, but the real awesome moment comes when you head to the back of the shed and find a discarded note. The note mentions that a big guy with a thick Austrian accent showed up out of nowhere with a kid in tow and basically borrowed the owner's motorcycle. It's a perfect low-key reference to the Terminator movies, specifically Terminator 2, Judgment Day, where Arnold Schwarzenegger's T-800 takes a bike to protect John Connor. It's such a classic Techland move to hide a legendary weapon like the Statement inside of a movie tribute. The name of the shotgun even feels like a tribute to the statement the Terminator makes every time he walks into a room. It's one of those spots that make you feel like a total action hero, especially once you pick up that heavy-hitting shotgun and realize you're standing right where a sci-fi legend supposedly stood. If you find yourself wandering through the plaza right outside of Town Hall, you're going to notice a pretty large naked statue standing there. At first glance, it just looks like a piece of fancy city decor, but if you look closely at its hands, you'll see it's actually holding a sword. Most players just run past it, but you can actually grab that weapon for yourself if you're willing to put in the work. To get the sword, you have to go on a bit of a scavenger hunt to destroy a bunch of plaques hidden around the town hall area. It sounds easy enough, but it's actually a total pain because the zombies in this area are relentless. First, you need to smash the plaque right at the base of the statue, and then head around to the other side to find the second one. From there, you've got to start searching the building itself. There are 2 more plaques on the right side of the town hall, and if you look a bit higher up on the wall, you'll spot a third one tucked away. The hunt doesn't stop there though. You'll need to run over to the left side of the building to find another plaque, and then check the nearby archway for one more. Finally, you have to head over to that big orange walkway sitting right in front of the town hall to find the last two. Honestly, this whole process can take a solid 10 minutes or more because the infected just will not leave you alone. They're constantly crawling all over you while you're trying to aim, which makes the parkour and the searching way more stressful than it needs to be. Once you've finally smashed every single one of those plaques, you'll hear a sound letting you know the statue is now interactive. You can head back to the center of the plaza, climb up the statue itself, and finally snatch the Brel blade from its hands. It's a beautiful sword, which is easily one of the most cool looking weapon types in the game. It's got a great feel to it and some solid stats, making all that running around and dodging zombies totally worth the effort. Did you know that you can actually hop behind the wheel of a massive combine harvester in this game? It's not just there for decoration, it's actually part of a hidden minigame that can give you a massive amount of experience points if you're good at it. You can find this beastly machine parked out in the fields, but getting it started is going to require a bit of legwork before the fun begins. The first thing you'll realize is that this thing is a total gas digger, because to even get the engine to turn over, you have to find and pour in a buttload of gas. We're talking somewhere around 35 cans of fuel. It's a bit of a grind to track all of that down, and you have to fill up the tank completely. The game won't let you start the challenge if you're even a little bit short. Once you've finally dumped the last of the gas into the tank, you can walk up to the ladder on the side, and you'll see a prompt to finally initiate the minigame. As soon as you climb into the cab and start it up, the chaos begins. The best part is that once the minigame starts, you don't actually have to worry about the gas running out while you're driving. The fuel you put in is basically just the entry fee for the challenge. Your goal is simple. Drive around the field and plow through as many zombies as humanly possible before the timer hits 0. It's incredibly satisfying to watch the zombies just disappear under the blades of the harvester. If you're efficient and manage to clear out enough of the infected to earn a gold medal, the reward is definitely worth the effort. Completing the challenge with a top score will bag you somewhere around 1500 experience points, which is a huge boost for your character's progression. It's easily one of the most fun ways to grind for levels, and honestly, there's just something cathartic about turning a zombie apocalypse into a very messy harvest season. One thing you'll notice immediately about Dying Light to the Beast is that it isn't interested in holding your hand. It really leans into the survival aspect, putting more pressure on the player than any other game in the series. To do this, the developers actually stripped away some of those quality of life features that we've grown used to in big open world games. For starters, there's no fast travel. If you want to get from one side of the map to the other, you're doing it the hard way, either by mastering your parkour skills or finding a vehicle to cross the larger routes of open land. The game is also much more punishing when it comes to your character's progression. Unlike the previous entries, there are no resetting options here. Once you commit to a skill, you're stuck with it for the rest of the game, so you really have to think about your playstyle before you spend those points. And, of course, the series' signature nighttime mechanics are back, and more terrifying than ever. The visibility is extremely low, and the volatiles roaming the streets are easily the deadliest versions that we've seen to date. They're faster, smarter, and much harder to lose once they spot you. However, the game does give you a massive incentive to handle the dark. You get double XP for everything you do at night. If you're looking to level up quickly, being a night owl is the only way to go. You can always use safe houses to sleep and change the time of day if things get a bit too intense. But a pro tip is to save your side activities for the nighttime. Since they usually have lower stakes than the main story mission, it's a bit less frustrating if you fail, and you still get that sweet XP bonus. Just whatever you do, don't forget your UV flashlight. It's easy to overlook when you're focused on your weapons, but that light is a total lifesaver. It can buy you those crucial few seconds to stun a hunter and find an escape route when the horde is right on your heels. In The Beast, survival isn't just about how hard you can hit, it's about managing your resources and respecting the world once the sun goes down. When comparing the physics and kicks between the original Dying Light and The Beast, there's a pretty noticeable shift in how the combat feels. Fans on Reddit have been debating this for a while, and it really comes down to whether you prefer fun physics or realistic physics. In the first Dying Light, the kicks, especially the dropkick, felt much more stylized and over the top. When you connected a dropkick, zombies would go flying, spinning through the air like they had no weight at all. It was incredibly satisfying and gave the combat a cartoony but addictive feel. You had to be sprinting to pull it off, and it felt like you were launching a projectile at the enemies. In the Beast, the physics have been adjusted to feel much heavier and more grounded. Instead of spinning into the clouds, zombies in the new game react more like a heavy object has just been slammed into them. They fall with more realistic gravity and weight, which fits the grittier, more detailed look of the game. Some players love this because it feels more brutal and real, but others miss the floaty, high-flying chaos of the first game. There's also a couple of mechanical changes to the kicks that have people talking. Standing air kick. In the Beast, and Dying Light 2, you can pull off an air kick almost from a standing position, whereas the original required a clear run-up. Some feel this makes the move a bit too easy to spam, while others like the added mobility. Control changes. The button layout for the dropkick has changed, which has been a bit of an adjustment for long-time players. In the Beast, it often requires pressing the action button twice, which can lead to some accidental jumps into a zombie's arms if you forget. Multiple targets. There's a bit of a debate on how many enemies you can hit at once. In the original, you could clear out a whole group if they were lined up right. In the Beast, the physics seems to cap the impact at around 2 enemies, making it feel a bit more deliberate and less like an area of effect attack. Overall, the Beast is being praised for finding a middle ground. It's not as floaty as the early days of Dying Light 2, but it still keeps that core satisfaction of booting a zombie off a roof. It feels like a meaty version of the combat we love, designed to make you feel like a powerful, veteran survivor. This secret house is one of the coolest hidden in plain sight spots in Dying Light the Beast. You'll find this specific home in the Golden Pines area, located directly across the street from the pharmacy. When you first walk in, the house looks like any other abandoned building, and that letter mentioning a secret door feels like it might be a prank, since the walls look completely solid. But the trick is all in the decor. If you head to the wall with the large portrait, give it a good smack. Usually 1 or 2 hits will do it. This actually knocks the painting aside or breaks the frame to reveal a tiny, hidden button underneath. Once you interact with that switch, a section of the wall slides open to reveal a hidden loot room. Inside, you'll find a massive haul of supplies, but the real prize is the Rogue Arm Guard. It's part of the legendary Rogue Armor set, which is perfect for players who want to lean into a faster, stealthier build while still having some solid protection. The best part about this room, though, is its utility. Unlike most secret areas that stay open once found, you can actually close the door from the inside. Because it's a hidden room, it essentially acts as a DIY safe house. If the sun starts going down and you realize you're surrounded by high-level volatiles with no way out, you can duck into this room, seal the door, and wait out the night in total safety. It's a literal lifesaver for anyone playing on higher difficulties where the night is a death sentence. If you're looking for the ultimate way to stay prepared for the brutal nights in Dying Light the Beast, finding a reliable source of high-tier equipment is absolutely essential. There's a specific secret bunker on the map that serves as a goldmine for resources, but you have to do a little prep work before you can earn the rewards. To find it, you'll want to check out this exact spot on the map. Once you're inside the bunker, you'll be greeted by a crowd of zombies that have taken up residence in the dark. You'll need to clear them out every time you visit, but the first time is the most important, because you'll also need to track down the generator. Turning on the power is the only way to get the main gates to open, which finally gives you access to the heart of the facility where the best loot is stashed. Inside this secure section, you'll find one of the most brilliant pieces of gear in the game, the Rogue Jacket. This is a legendary tier item that's part of the high mobility Rogue set, and it's a massive find for anyone trying to build a character that can move fast and strike hard. Even if you've already picked up the jacket on a previous run, the bunker remains one of the most valuable locations on the map for one very specific reason: the legendary UV bars. Unlike basic gear, these bars are incredibly rare and powerful, and since you can't just craft them whenever you want, having a guaranteed spawn point is a total game changer for surviving volatile situations. For surviving volatile encounters, the absolute best thing about this bunker is that it acts as a recurring supply depot. The legendary UV bars actually respawn every single time you visit, meaning you can keep coming back to restock your inventory whenever you're running low. Because the game doesn't give you a blueprint to make these yourself, this location becomes a mandatory stop on your farming route. By clearing the zombies and looting the room, you can walk away with a full stack of UV protection, making those terrifying night runs a lot more manageable. It's a perfect example of how the game rewards players who take the time to find and memorize these hidden, safe loops in the world. If you're in the mood for something a bit more chilling than your standard zombie encounter, you need to head over to this specific house, right in the middle of Old Town. While most buildings in the city feel like they were abandoned in a rush, this one has a much more sinister energy. As soon as you step inside, the atmosphere shifts. You're not just looking at a place where people hid from the infected, you're looking at a crime scene involving something much darker. The interior is filled with disturbing visuals that point toward black rituals and occult practices. You'll find intricate setups on the floor and walls, surrounded by heavy bloodstains that clearly weren't caused by a random zombie attack. The way the objects are arranged suggests that whoever lived here was trying to tap into something supernatural, or perhaps even trying to control the infection through dark magic. It's one of those Dying Light storytelling moments where the game doesn't give you all the answers, leaving the murder mystery of the house completely unsolved. The community is still buzzing about this location because it feels like a setup for something bigger. Some players think it might be a hint at future DLC or a hidden side quest that hasn't been fully uncovered yet. For now, it stands as a haunting reminder that even as the world ended, some people were turning to ancient, dark traditions to try and survive, or to cause even more chaos. It's definitely a spot worth visiting if you like the true crime side of the Dying Light universe, but you might want to bring a friend and a very bright flashlight so you don't feel so alone in the dark. Finding Ewer the chicken is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the quirky, animal-themed secrets Techland included in Dying Light the Beast. While adopting her during the quest, Some Like It Dark, is the primary way to get her into your town hall room, the community has uncovered that she's part of a larger network of Easter eggs, including a direct connection to the famous Boba the Beaver. Ewer's most notable contribution to your safe zone is the golden egg she lays next to her nest. This isn't just a decoration. The egg is a unique throwable item that triggers a special Eggsplosion visual effect, and in the game's secret alternate reality game community, it's rumored to be a key component for a much larger puzzle. Some players have found that by taking the golden egg to a specific, red-dressed body in the belfry and using UV light, you can trigger a hidden cutscene that hints at the origins of Crane's beast powers. When looking at how Dying Light the Beast was actually programmed and developed, the story is one of the most interesting pivot tales in recent gaming. It started as a side project and mutated into a full AAA standalone title because of unannounced leaks. If you're digging into the technical development, here are the core facts regarding its programming and creation. 1. The Great Pivot, technical standalone shift. Originally, the project was developed under the title Dying Light 2 DLC 2. However, in April 2023, a massive plot and script leak hit the internet. The decision, rather than just patching the leak, Techland's leadership held a series of high-intensity meetings. They decided to scrap parts of the leaked narrative and use the existing assets to build a standalone game that focused on the return of Kyle Crane. The programming impact. This changed the game's code from a module, which would have shared Dying Light 2's exact physics and inventory systems, into a standalone executable. This allowed programmers to roll back or tweak core systems, like gravity and friction, without breaking the main DL2 game, C-Engine Evolution, the Forest tech. The game runs on an evolved version of the C-Engine. While DL2 focused on high-rise urban parkour, the Beast focuses on rural Castor Woods, physics tweaks. Programmers specifically targeted the floaty feel of DL2. They recoded the parkour variables to give Crane a more grounded and heavy movement style, reminiscent of Dying Light 1. Asset density. Because the map is more compact than the massive city of Villador, Techland was able to handcraft nearly 98% of the interiors. This means fewer procedural filler rooms and more unique, story-driven assets in every house. Lighting tech. The engine was updated to support native HDR and ray-traced global illumination, which was added in the major update 1.4. This was programmed to make dark zones genuinely pitch black, forcing players to rely on their flashlight and UV flares. The Beast Mode AI logic. Programming Carl Kane's Beast Mode wasn't just about giving the player more damage, it required a complete overhaul of the infected AI behavior. Interaction logic. When you enter Beast Mode, the AI scripts for zombies change. Instead of standard pursuit mode, certain zombies are programmed to cower or retreat, while freaks, the game's bosses, are triggered to enter more aggressive combat phases. Skill tree programming. Unlike the sprawling trees of the previous games, the beast tree was programmed to be more biological. Points are earned through blood samples and experiments, linking the gameplay progression directly to the narrative of Crane's volatile DNA. Audio engineering. The Monster Factory partnership. Techland partnered with the Monster Factory to record a massive library of sounds. Soundbite density. They recorded over 9,000 unique soundbites for the various zombie types. Dynamic audio. The audio engine was programmed to prioritize stealth-based sound. In the forest, the audio focuses on environmental cues, the snap of twigs or the rustle of leaves, which acts as a low-tech radar system for players who turn off their HUD. The story of Dying Light, the Beast, is the story of the industry. Provides a deep dive into how Techland turned a major setback into a standalone success. If you're looking at the development history and the industry-wide impact, here's the breakdown of the most critical facts from that piece. The burn it down philosophy. Techland's franchise director, Timon Smektala, shared that after the original DLC 2 script leaked online, the team didn't try to revise or patch it up. Instead, they scrapped it entirely and started from the ground up. The original concept. The project was initially focused on Aiden Caldwell, the protagonist of DL2, the pivot. After the leak, Techland realized that the story they were trying to tell actually belonged to Kyle Crane. This was a pivotal moment for the industry, showing a studio willing to reset production entirely to maintain narrative integrity. Standalone evolution. By making it a standalone title, they could increase the map size, add dozens of new characters, and create a huge number of side quests that wouldn't have fit within the constraints of a DLC. The Roger Craig Smith factor. The development of the Beast was actually dependent on one key person, voice actor Roger Craig Smith. The deal breaker. Smektala admitted that if Roger Craig Smith had said no to returning as Kyle Crane, Techland might have abandoned the story entirely and looked for a different project. A mature performance. Smith didn't just record more lines. He worked with the developers to create a mature take on Crane, reflecting the 20 years of trauma and experimentation the character has endured since the first game. Technical and gameplay ambitions. The article highlights that Techland used the Beast as a playground to push their in-house C-engine further than Dying Light 2 ever did. Firearms integration. A major part of the programming was focused on adding a layer of behavior to enemies to make them react realistically to firearms, something fans felt was missing from the early days of DL2. The Chimera bosses. The team introduced chimeras, massive hulking experiments by the Baron, which required entirely new boss fight logic and physics-based interactions. Parkour focus. The development team doubled down on the go anywhere, climb anything promise, focusing specifically on first-person perspective details that highlight the physical connection between the player and the terrain. A commentary on the game industry. GameRant frames the development of the Beast as a reflection of the modern gaming industry's resilience. Talent retention. Unlike many studios currently facing mass layoffs, Techland highlighted their ability to keep the core talent that worked on the original Dying Light. This retention of memory is what allowed them to develop the Beast at an accelerated, higher intensity pace. The 10th anniversary mark. The game is designed to be a strong exclamation mark for the 10th anniversary of the franchise, setting the stage for future Dying Light projects that are already in the brainstorming phase. That bunker is currently one of the most debated Easter egg hunts in the Dying Light, the Beast community. You've actually stumbled onto an ultimate secret that Techland seems to have designed specifically for the 100% completion crowd who explore the map's borders. Here's the breakdown of what the community has discovered about that specific location and that cryptic code. The entrance is intentionally designed to be inaccessible unless you're in beast mode. This is a power gate secret, ensuring that players only find it in the late game. There are actually 2 different hidden wall markers, depending on which bunker you find. There are a few scattered at the edges, but the one with the single zombie is the most infamous. Some players have found tally marks that translate to 666, 7, 6666. On the other wall, the UV light reveals binary strings. If it's the one from the Emil's skull or the edge bunker, it usually translates to 54090 or 55090. While the 54090 code opens a safe in the villa area, players are finding that using it inside that specific border bunker does nothing. This has led to the theory that this bunker is part of a larger, unsolved Easter egg, possibly linked to the golden train tickets or the Last Hand of Glover questline. The fact that there's only one zombie inside is widely considered a reference to the hatch from the show Lost, which Techland has referenced in every single game since Dead Island. In Dying Light 1, there was a similar bunker. In The Beast, the single zombie is often nicknamed Desmond by fans. Some believe that if you perform a specific action, like using a certain emote or waiting for a specific in-game time, a secret compartment opens. There's a strong possibility that this is a developer room anchor. In Dying Light 2, the Korak machete was hidden in a similar way. The glitchy look of the area suggests it might be a trigger point for a future DLC or a community event that hasn't been activated yet. If you take a closer look at Kyle Crane in Dying Light, the Beast, you'll start to see some really touching and sad details that prove he never truly moved on from the friends he lost in Harran. One of the coolest but most heartbreaking things you can spot is right on his wrist. If you use the animation to check your watch, you'll see he's actually wearing a bead bracelet made from the exact same jade necklace that Jade Aldemir wore in the first game. It's a small, quiet way of showing that even after 20 years and all that torture, he's still holding on to the memory of the woman who gave her life so he could survive. It's like he's literally carrying his grief with him everywhere he goes, using those beads as a way to stay connected to his own humanity, while the beast inside him tries to take over. The references don't stop there, as Techland introduced a few more tributes into the gear that you can find throughout the world. For instance, if you pick up the Hero of Harran bundle, you get a special jade-tinted pistol that's a direct giveaway to her, complete with descriptions about debts that can never be repaid. But the detail that really hits home is found on the mercenary arm guards. If you go into photo mode and zoom in really tight on the inner part of the guards, you can see where Crane has actually scratched the name Jade into the material. It gives you this heavy feeling that during his 13 years locked in a lab, he was literally carving her name into his armor, just to make sure he didn't forget who he was or why he was fighting. It's these tiny, human touches that make Crane such a great character. He might be a monster on the outside now, but he's still that same guy who cares deeply about the people he loves. Techland have a long history of hiding signs to other horror icons in their games, like the It sewer grate or the Resident Evil references, and this Silent Hill 2 tribute is a perfect fit for the eerie, foggy atmosphere of the Castor Woods. Finding a body that mirrors James Sunderland, complete with the iconic green military jacket and messy hair, is a pretty dark sign to the fans. In the world of Silent Hill, James is a character defined by grief and a fractured mind, which actually parallels Carl Crane's journey in The Beast quite well. Both characters are haunted by women they lost, Jade and Mary, and are struggling to hold on to their sanity while being surrounded by literal monsters. Seeing James ended in the Dying Light universe is like a grim crossover, showing that even the most famous survival horror protagonists didn't stand much of a chance against the Harran virus. It's also worth noting that this body is usually found in a location that feels a bit more foggy or otherworldly than the rest of the map, which is definitely a deliberate choice by the game designers to set the Silent Hill mood. Some players have even joked that since James spent so much time demolishing monsters with a wooden plank, he'd fit right in with the early game combat of Dying Light. It's these little handcrafted details that make exploring the edges of the map so rewarding, even if all you find is a depressing reference to another legendary horror game. The Volatile meeting in the tunnel near the Exile's Cave is one of the most nostalgic secrets in Dying Light, the Beast, serving as a direct callback to a famous hidden encounter from the original 2015 game. When you approach the door and peer inside, you catch a rare, chilling glimpse of several volatiles gathered in a circle, as if they're communicating or sharing a dark social moment, which immediately breaks the tension when they notice you. The second you try to open the door, the meeting ends in chaos, as the creatures let out a collective roar and begin a high-speed pursuit, forcing you into a frantic chase through the dark tunnels, just like the classic scares of the first game. What makes this Easter egg particularly special is its one-time only nature. If you return to the spot later, the door is typically barred or the room is empty. making it feel like a lucky or very unlucky glimpse into the secret lives of the infected. The developers even included a little help for the player by placing a UV bar inside the room, giving you a vital tool to create a temporary safe zone once the chase begins. This encounter does more than just provide a jump scare. It bridges the gap between the two games by showing that, despite the passage of 20 years and all the experiments, the Volatiles still retain that same terrifying, primal behavior that made them the kings of the night in Harran. Finding the Sunray revolver is a huge win in Dying Light the Beast, because it's easily one of the coolest and most powerful guns you can get your hands on. It's a legendary weapon that looks amazing, but it's definitely not something the game just hands to you. You have to do a little bit of detective work to track it down. To find it, you need to head over to the villa area in the northern part of the map, specifically looking for a house just north of the vanity store. Once you're there, you'll find a hidden hatch in the backyard that leads down into a secret basement bunker. The door inside is powered down, so you'll have to run back up into the main house, grab a fuse off a body in the bathroom, and bring it back down to get the power running. Once the lights are on, you'll find a safe that holds the prize, which you can open using the code 2219. What makes this revolver so special isn't just the fact that it hits like a freight train, but how it feels to use compared to the scrappy, makeshift weapons you usually find. In a world where guns are rare and ammo is even rarer, having the Sunray feels like a major power trip, especially when you're facing off against those massive chimera bosses or a group of angry bandits. It has a really unique, polished look and much better handling than the standard revolvers, making it feel like a professional piece of gear in a messy apocalypse. Just a heads up though, because revolver ammo is so hard to find, a lot of players suggest treating this bunker as your home base, since bullets for it will actually respawn there every few days. It's the kind of weapon that changes how you play the game, turning you from someone who runs away from big fights into the person who ends them with one well-placed shot. If you're wondering what the deal is with a smoking, knife-holding potato on a chimney, you aren't alone, but there's actually a bit of internet history behind it. While it hasn't been officially confirmed by the devs, most players believe this is a tribute to the killer potato, or potato with a knife memes that have floated around the internet for years. It's a perfect example of Techland's sense of humor. They love taking a totally nonsensical internet joke and turning it into a high-end 3D model hidden in a place where 99% of players will never think to look. The addition of the sunglasses and the cigarette just adds that cool guy vibe to an otherwise ridiculous vegetable. It's the kind of discovery that makes you stop and just say, wait, did I really just see that? Especially in a game that's usually so dark and serious. In the Dying Light community, these are known as dev gags, because the development of the beast was so high intensity after the script leaks that artists often threw in these little jokes to blow off steam. It doesn't give you a legendary weapon or a special blueprint, but it's a badge of honor for explorers. It's also a bit of a meta joke. You parkour your way up a difficult house, expecting a rare loot chest or a tragic law note, and instead you're greeted by a potato that looks like it's about to rob you. It's basically the developer's way of saying, gotcha. That secret bike challenge is actually a spiritual successor to the famous bicycle and hoverboard challenges from Dying Light 2. But Techland definitely made this one feel a lot more grounded to fit the forest setting of the Castor Woods. Even though it doesn't drop a legendary blueprint or a special weapon, it's widely considered one of the best pure parkour tests in the game because of how it forces you to master the new forest physics. The bike itself looks like a beat-up mountain bike, which is a nice change of pace from the high-tech paragliders and grapples. It forces you to think about momentum in a way that feels very old-school Dying Light. On the subreddit for the game, players often post their best times for this specific run, because the rewards are just standard XP. The real prize is getting a gold tier time on a track that is notoriously easy to wipe out on. The history behind this bike is that there's a small community theory that this bike belongs to a character mentioned in one of the collectible notes, a former pro BMX rider who was trying to navigate the woods to find his family. Finding his bike leaning against a tree in the middle of nowhere is a classic Techland storytelling moment. It implies he didn't make it, but his trail is still there for you to follow. If you're having trouble hitting the gold time, try entering the challenge while in a low-level beast mode, if your skill tree allows it. Some players have found that the increased stamina regeneration actually carries over to the bike's sprint mechanic, giving you just enough of a boost to clear the longer jumps. The universe of Dying Light is very similar with the 1966 Western movie The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, mainly because of its zombified environment, which is depicting a Wild West theme, and the usage of revolvers like the Sunray changes the poster theme from The Good, the Bad and the Ugly to The Good, the Bad and the Infected. The last word change indicates the nature of the Dying Light universe, since in this universe, the good mainly is Kyle, the bad are the Baron and his mercenaries, and the infected, obviously, judging by the name, are the zombies. The presence of the poster imposes a clear indication set by the developers that Kyle Crane is the Clint Eastwood of the Dying Light universe, and the environment of Castor Woods sets the tone of the whole movie with its Wild Western theme. To build on this, you can really see how Kyle Crane has evolved into that lonely drifter archetype that Clint Eastwood made famous. In the first game, Crane was a soldier following orders, but in The Beast, he's a man with no home, no unit, and a heavy past, wandering into a lawless territory, just like a classic cowboy entering a dusty border town. The Castor Woods acts as his home. It's a place where the government has failed, and the only thing that matters is how well you can survive on your own. When you see him standing on a rocky overlook with the Sunray revolver on his hip, it's a total man with no name vibe. He's rugged, he doesn't say more than he needs to, and he's caught in the middle of a war between people who are just as dangerous as the monsters outside. The Baron and his mercenaries perfectly fill the role of the bad, acting like a corrupt gang of law-breaking party that has taken over a small town to squeeze it for everything it's worth. They have the walls, the guns, and the ego, thinking they own the land, which sets up a perfect showdown for Crane. Then you have the infected, who represent the unpredictable, ugly chaos of the desert. They're the wild animals and the harsh environment that make the frontier so deadly. By mashing these themes together, the developers are making a post-apocalyptic western. This shift in tone makes every encounter feel more personal and intense, like a high-stakes duel. Every time you walk into a new camp or explore a ruined barn in the woods, the game is telling you that the rules of the modern world are gone, and we're back to the old ways, where the good have to be just as tough as the bad to keep the infected at bay. It's clear that Dying Light to the Beast is a combination of every genre there is to exist, and indeed, there's no debate on gruesome and adultery being in the same pot. The nude photograph found in the toilet is particularly unsettling, and definitely leans into that darker, more depraved side of human nature that surfaces during an apocalypse. It's disgusting to think about, but if someone was actually watching that photograph right before the zombie fiesta kicked off, you really have to wonder if they got exactly what they were wishing for in the worst way possible. Being interrupted in such a private, shameful moment by a naked zombie, literally a creature with no clothes and no humanity left, is a terrifying irony. The fact that these zombies are completely naked themselves adds a whole other layer of adult horror to the game that we didn't really see as much in the first two titles. It's a very weird and gross fit for that person's toilet mission before they got zombified, turning a moment of secret lust into a literal death trap. As players have pointed out on Reddit, finding that photo hidden under a toilet lid, only visible if you actually knock the cover off, shows just how much Techland wanted to hide these small, nasty stories in the game. It implies that while the world was ending, people were still being people, for better or for worse, often getting caught in their most vulnerable or disgraceful moments by the very monsters that would eventually strip them of their own clothes and dignity. It really hammers home that in the Dying Light universe, the infected aren't just a threat to your life, but a total erasure of everything civil and private. Since Techland is a Polish game studio, they love honouring their national legacy, and the IGA legendary tennis racket is one of the coolest cultural Easter eggs in Dying Light the Beast. This weapon is a direct tribute to Iga Swiatek, the real-life Polish tennis superstar who has dominated the world rankings. It's not just a joke item either, it's actually a top-tier blunt weapon that can send zombies flying with a single swing, making it a must-have for players who want to mix high-level parkour with some professional-grade sports violence. You can find the IGA racket in a location that matches its theme perfectly. It's located in an upscale area of the map, usually near a private tennis court or inside a luxury sports club. And just like the real Iga is known for her incredible power and precision on the court, the in-game weapon has a massive force stat, When you land a successful hit, it often triggers a satisfying crack sound effect that sounds exactly like a high-velocity tennis serve, and the knockback is strong enough to clear out a small crowd of biters in seconds. The developers even went the extra mile with the visual details on the racket. If you zoom in using photo mode, you'll see that the branding and the grip tape are inspired by the gear Syrric actually uses in her tournaments. It's a great example of how Techland balances the dark, grim atmosphere of the apocalypse with a bit of national pride and light-hearted fun. It transforms Kyle Crane from a gritty survivor into a post-apocalyptic Grand Slam champion, proving that even when the world ends, Polish legends still find a way to make their mark. The Skull Book, often referred to by the community as the Book of the Dead, is one of the most mysterious and debated ghost items in Dying Light. It's a white, unsettling book with a prominent skull on the cover that you can stumble across during a couple of different missions, most notably in a cupboard during the Dead Pete's side quest, where you're fetching items for the scientist near the Hardwood Art Gallery, or located in a mountain resort during the Stay Human quest. What makes it so interesting, and honestly a bit frustrating, is that it doesn't behave like a normal item. When you interact with it, it doesn't go into your inventory, it doesn't show up in your collectibles, and it doesn't give you a blueprint. It just disappears into thin air with a click, leaving players to wonder if they just picked up a vital secret, or if the game simply glitched out. The Necronomicon connection. Because of that skull picture, the community has largely labelled it as the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. This is a massive signal to classic horror franchises like The Evil Dead and The Mummy. In those movies, the book is a dark, powerful artifact used to summon demons or raise the dead. Finding it in a mundane cupboard or a dusty attic feels like a hint from the developers, implying that someone in the Dying Light universe was messing with forces they didn't understand right as the outbreak hit. In a world where people are turning into zombies, it makes total sense that some terrified survivor would turn to ancient Egyptian documents or occult books to try and find a way to stop the infected. There's a huge debate on Reddit and Steam right now about whether this book is actually nothing or if it's part of a massive, multi-step Easter egg that hasn't even been fully solved yet. Some players have noticed that in the rooms where you find the book, there's often other strange details, like a lamp on the floor in the Deadbeat's house that flashes in a pattern that looks suspiciously like Morse code. There's also rumours that picking up the book is a hidden requirement for spawning other secret items elsewhere in Castor Woods, similar to how the sigil stones worked in previous games. There's also the very real possibility that it's an unfinished piece of content. With the high-speed development of the beast, it wouldn't be surprising if this was supposed to lead to a secret Evil Dead weapon like a chainsaw or a special boomstick, but the questline got cut, leaving only the book behind as a phantom interaction. Even if it doesn't lead to a legendary sword right now, the Skull Book has become a badge of honor for hunters. It's that one weird thing you find in a cupboard that makes you stop and go, wait, what was that? It keeps the community talking, proving that even a simple white book can add a huge layer of mystery to the world. This comparison really highlights why the community views Kyle Crane as the ultimate legend of the franchise. While Aiden Caldwell is a genetic powerhouse, his beast mode often feels like a liability or a runaway train that he's just barely riding. It's erratic, triggered by stress or infection spikes, and as we saw with the tragic incident with Veronica, it can turn him into a danger to the very people he's trying to save. Aiden is essentially a victim of his own biology. He's a lab experiment who's constantly fighting against a transformation that wants to erase his mind. Even with all those years as a pilgrim, walking thousands of kilometers across the wastes, he still struggles with basic physical endurance in high-pressure situations, often getting winded when the stakes are highest. Kyle Crane, however, is a different breed entirely, because he combines that raw, supernatural power with the mind of a veteran soldier and an elite survivor. In The Beast, we see the payoff of Crane's decade of suffering and experimentation. He didn't just survive his transformation, he conquered it. He's managed to bridge the gap between his human consciousness and the chimera-enhanced strength flowing through his veins. This means that when Crane goes into his beast mode, he isn't just messing around like a wild animal. He's a tactical weapon. He can use superhuman strength to punch through a concrete wall 1 second, and then immediately switch back to precise, surgical marksmanship with a revolver the next. He doesn't lose himself to the rage. He uses the rage as a tool. The stamina gap is also a massive factor in why Crane takes the win. In the original game, we watched Crane go from a clumsy GRE agent to a parkour god who could run for miles without breaking a sweat, and that foundation clearly stayed with him even through his years of captivity. He has that old school grit, where he relies on his own training and muscle memory, rather than just relying on a viral boost to bail him out. Aiden's reliance on his beast side often feels like a crutch that can fail at any moment, whereas Crane's strength is an extension of his own will. When you look at the big picture, Crane is the superior survivor because he's reliable. You know that under pressure, Crane isn't going to accidentally turn and maul a teammate because he lost control. He makes calculated decisions even when his heart rate is through the roof and his body is vibrating with viral energy. He's the Clint Eastwood of the apocalypse, calm, collected, and deadly, while Aiden is more like a high-strung rookie with a nuke in his pocket that he doesn't know how to aim. Power is just noise if you don't have the skill to focus it, and Crane has spent 20 years proving he has more focus than anyone else left alive. The Baron, Marius Fisher, is a massive step up for the series because he feels like a modern, calculating threat rather than just a cartoon warlord or a mad scientist shouting about his vision. Comparing him to the Mother from the following is actually spot on, because they both represent a high-level manipulation that makes you feel like a pawn in a much larger game. While Reyes was just a violent bully and Waltz was a tragic but ultimately one-note obsessed father, the Baron is a chess player who treated Kyle Crane like a science project for 13 years. He isn't just trying to survive, he's trying to own the future of the virus. Having Aiden Caldwell be the creature Crane was hunting is a stroke of genius. It connects the franchise's timeline, setting the game in 2037, roughly a year after Dying Light 2, and justifies why this particular monster was so elusive and powerful. Aiden's feral, uncontrollable state perfectly contrasts with Crane's senior beast status. It makes Aiden feel more like a tragic figure, a younger version of Crane who hasn't learned to tame the monster yet. Finding out Olivia was essentially the Baron's handler for Crane explains everything about how she always knew where the chimeras were and why she was never targeted. She was leading Crane for a gauntlet to collect GSB samples in his own blood, turning him into a living pharmacy for the Baron. Her motive, saving her father, makes her human, but it definitely makes her redemption feel a bit unearned for many players. The Last Supper scene is easily the most villainous moment in the entire series. It's the kind of psychological torture that we haven't seen since the first game. Losing Spike, the guy who literally started our journey in Dying Light 1 and welcomed Aiden in Dying Light 2, is a gut punch that actually justifies the rage you feel in the final fight. It's the ultimate rage moment. By killing Spike, the Baron officially ends the old world for Crane. It turns the final act from a mission into a vendetta. When you're chasing the Baron for his fortress, you aren't just doing it for the survivors. You're doing it because he took away one of the last links to Crane's humanity. But I don't think I'm alone in thinking that Olivia got off easy. She effectively traded Spike's life for her father's safety, and the fact that Crane doesn't even get a dialogue choice to call her out on it feels like a slight oversight in the writing. She ends the game as an ally, but to many, she'll always be the person who sold out the dream team. If you enjoyed the video, there's plenty more where this came from. If you'd like to keep learning about your favorite games, click the video on screen, and I'll see you over there.